Talk. This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
The champion, welcome, Danny Batten.
Yes, guys, I'm Si, and welcome to A.C.E Podcast Nation. It is Monday night, which is Fight Night this week, and of course, powered by Violent Money. Please go check out Violent Money TV on YouTube, and of course, the Violent Money products at the store at violentmoney.co.uk. You can use our discount code of 20% off, ACE20, including their latest collaboration, which you'll see me modeling nicely here with their Weekend Defender, two top brands. So check that out, and of course, check out the Violent Money Academy, which is the first smart gym in the UK. Follow them on social media and all that good stuff. Links in the description below. We've got a jam-packed show this evening. Lots to talk about. Exclusive guests, big stories, upsets, results, all sorts of stuff to discuss. But we're live on YouTube as always. If you prefer your podcast in audio form, then check out this series and all the other series produced by A.C.E Podcast Nation at the Sports Social Podcast Network. So check them out on social media, and of course their website is sportssocial.co.uk. But let's get into it. Joining me tonight, first and foremost, of course, he's a former Cage Warriors champion. He's a UK MMA legend, live from BST Academy. It is Mr. Danny Batten. How are you, mate?
Yes, I'm all good, Si, and listeners. Well, we've got lots to cover tonight. UFC,
yes,
Bellator, and boxing.
Oh, yes, lots to discuss. But before all of that, I'm delighted to welcome our first guest of the evening. He is also a former Cage Warriors champion, and he is looking forward to an upcoming fight against Crazy Horse Josh Reed on Cage Warriors show. I'm very happy to welcome back Luke Shanks to the show. How are you, my friend?
Hey, thanks. It's a pleasure, man. Yeah, very good, thanks.
Also, just finished training as well, so I appreciate both of you finding the
sway.
time. Still sway, but yeah. Look, so mate, it's been 6 months or so since we've seen you last in the cage after a very, very active couple of years, really. From you were like me and you were just talking like pretty much every 8 weeks for a while. You were just back out, and you had some huge fights in those. In that period of activity. What's it been like to have that 6 months off?
Yeah, it's been good, man. Yeah, it was literally 3 months off doing nothing. I just needed a break and then give your body time to recover. And then, yeah, been back on it this last 3 months, ready to go again. That's the thing, yeah, when you're doing it every 8 weeks, I was either signed up in a tournament or getting those rematches. So I didn't really want to go that soon. But if you've signed to fight that date, you've got to do it. So, but it's been good to have a little break, and I'm ready to go again.
And the other thing, I guess, as well, is obviously apart from the toll of training and fighting on your body, on your mind, being that active, is you weren't fighting. Like you weren't fighting bums or anything. You were fighting top level guys constantly. So like the preparation and everything which goes into fighting guys who are dangerous, who have got, you know, a unique set of skills and all this different stuff, is time consuming on the mind as well as the body, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Sometimes you just don't want to fight, and sometimes you wake up and it's not there if you've just had one, and then you're straight back into another camp. It's nice to know you can. I like that feeling of when you go back to the gym after your fight. Maybe you take a week off. You're going back by choice, not because you're straight into another one, sort of thing.
Another
but
camp.
yeah, it's been good. I could do 3 in a row again, but 4 or 5 is too much, man.
So obviously, you're coming back now. It's a big fight, and it's a good. From a fan's point of view, I think it's a really exciting fight. Was there any particular reason why you kind of got paired with Josh Reed, or was it just they kind of offered it to you both and you both just said, yeah?
Well, yeah. To be honest, I wanted the belt, to be honest, but I'm still signed in with Cage Warriors, so I just took whatever they were offering me on the latest show. So yeah, that's what happened. But I mean, it will be a good matchup. I like that fight anyway.
Yeah, it's an exciting one. I mean, Danny, I sent you a picture earlier this week of Nate Diaz versus Chimaev, because I was just like, that's an exciting fight. But I had the same reaction when I saw that Luke and Josh were paired up together as well. It's like those kind of exciting fights which you just know are going to be right up there for fan interest.
Oh yeah, that one's going to be an absolute tear. But I appreciate where Luke's coming from. He wants to get back on sort of title thinking. But you know, for fans, this is nothing but an exciting fight. With the Chimaev, I was kind of quite surprised they're offering him. Chimaev, if he wants to, I think he could just take Nate Diaz down at will, and that's going to be unfortunate on a fan's perspective, because I think we all want to see that bang out on the feet. But you know, Nate Diaz's wrestling ain't up there with that kind of capability. So I feel like Chimaev, as soon as he gets in any kind of difficulty, if he gets any kind of difficulty on the feet, he can just choose to take it to the ground. Nate has got some clever jiu-jitsu, but I just worry he's going to get caught with a cut if he gets put on his back too often against someone like Chimaev. And I think it'll be, you know, a short display if that's the case. So yeah, I'm excited to see it, of course, naturally. They're both big names for very, very different reasons. But yeah, I worry for Nate in this one more than anyone else, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think Nate Diaz has got many fights left on his contract. This might even be the last one. I'd have to double check that.
Yeah.
Just while that's come up, Luke, do you see any way that Nate Diaz can trouble Chimaev, or do you think, like Danny, that it'll be a fairly quick affair?
Nah, not a chance. I would have liked to see him fight Colby. I think Colby could actually beat him.
Yeah, I think at this stage he could.
And I don't think he'd stand a chance, as Colby calls him, the CEO of EPO. Usman, no, I don't think he stands a chance against him.
Yeah, it's quite a mad division. Like, Chimaev's rise has been quite mad. Like, it's so quick. But
I'd say he's definitely number 3, though.
Yeah. He's, I mean, if they do pair him up against Nate Diaz, and he beats Nate, like, they've kind of got to give him either Colby or Usman at that point, haven't they? There's no one else they can't have him fight someone else outside the top 3, I don't think.
No. Has Masvidal got another fight? Is he fighting again?
I'll check that now. Because I don't know what's going on with him, because he had a few issues
fallen,
with the police.
Yeah, he's fallen off the cliff a little bit with not only his results and performances, but in his private life it's going to be hectic and haywire. Well,
when he attacked Colby Covington at, like, outside that restaurant or whatever, and he got arrested, like, I don't think Dana White was massively impressed by that. But, like, there's this weird thing. So, like, I saw a lot of people with that saying, oh, Colby Covington took it too far with his trash talk, so he's got to expect, you know, a slap or whatever. But ultimately, like, Jorge Masvidal had 5 rounds to do all the damage he wanted to do and make his point, and he didn't. So I don't know. It's just a bit stupid for me. But, like, I don't know. I don't think Masvidal's got. I think he's got a couple of fights left, but I don't think he's got a massive amount. And I don't think they want to put him anywhere near it at the moment. Like, I just think he's kind of on the back burner almost. But it'd be interesting to see who they do pair him up with next. But I saw Usman said today or yesterday that he kind of was like really disappointed in the way that Masvidal had behaved and attacked Covington. So it's like, I can't see, like, if the champion's kind of speaking like that, I can't see that the UFC is particularly going to be in a rush to put him back in the cage, shall we say. Do you reckon, Dan?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what you're saying. I think at this stage, Usman's been such a legend, an active legend at that. I think he has some weight behind any opinions that he has, especially regards on who he wants to fight and who he doesn't want to fight. But yeah, I'm kind of a bit confused with Masvidal. It seems like he's lost some of the hunger and desire. It's such a shame because we saw that amazing striking performance against Nate Diaz, as we're talking about Nate as well tonight. It was an amazing performance, and then really hasn't emerged from that the same sort of athlete. Now we could put that down to age. I think he's 37 now. It could be an age-related thing, but I think it's a motivational thing. Maybe he's made enough money now, and maybe it's opened him up to live his life perhaps the way he once lived it when his younger years, and seems to be going down the route of a little chaos. But he really hasn't got the years remaining to go be doing things like that. So, yeah, I don't know what's happening with Masvidal. It's a bit of a confusing one, but it's a shame because he was such an exciting fighter. But I think people don't take him seriously anymore on the top tier of things. I think he's good for a set super fight, but nothing more than that, really.
Yeah, I just looked at his contract thing. So he signed a new contract in March this year, I think, or whenever he fought Colby Covington. He signed a new contract just before that. So he's obviously got, a fair few fights on there, depending on how big, how long the contract is. So he will be back at some point, unless he ends up in jail, I suppose. It's the thing, isn't it? But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. Luke, kind of back to you, mate. Like how, obviously, we spoke about briefly, I think me and you spoke over a message, didn't we? And after you'd put those social media posts up about the tap, which wasn't seen by the referee, and obviously it was discussed. We discussed it on the show, and I think we had Sam on at some point as well who discussed it. Like, how was that build up to that fight? And then obviously, did you feel justified in the performance and everything? Like, you kind of put it all right after the second fight? Like, how difficult a period was that for you as well? Because obviously after the first fight, you must have been frustrated if you felt like, the tap was there and that you had won the fight quite early on.
Yeah, it was like I come off that Le Bon fight, and I was actually like quite sick before that one. I was actually throwing up before I went in the cage. It was just one of them. Caught something, and then. So when I was in there getting punched, I didn't feel too clever afterwards. I probably took more than what I would have if I was feeling just right. And then, you're straight back into another fight camp. But I didn't actually spar in between because it was straight off that 8 weeks. I probably didn't feel too clever for the first 4, so I didn't properly train and then got back into it again. I was just, I've got a manager now to deal with all this stuff because the questions I'm thinking is, if I pull out of that and it's a set date for the title fight and say I want it another 8 weeks later, are they going to give you it or just throw you to the back of the list? So I should have really just took a little bit of time off and got it when it was ready. But yeah, it is what it is. And then, I felt justified afterwards. Obviously, I cocked up on the weight. I should have probably done an IV as well, like him. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I think it's a weird situation. We've seen it this weekend again with, I've forgotten his name, who fought Oliveira, and obviously missed weight. So they took the title off him. And then he's gone and put on an exceptional performance and kind of won the fight, but hasn't got the title. It's this weird thing then where you've got like a disputed champion or a vacant champion, whereby from the results of the fights and the way the fights have gone, there's a certain person who should be in that slot. Like, Danny, what do you think? Like, of both situations, obviously you've got with Luke saying he would have preferred to come back for the title, but obviously you got the thing over the weekend with Oliveira as well.
Yeah. I just think for titles you need to make weight, no matter what. It's just the way it is. It's a hard truth of the situation. So I'm not surprised what happened to Charles regards having his title stripped from him. But at the end of the day, he's still absolutely at the top of the food chain. So it is a little hiccup for him, but one that he's going to get over. He's going to move on from. Let's just hope that he makes weight next time, because I know when he was a weight below, he had a couple of issues cutting weight, which is strange to see that he's having weight issues up at weight. It's kind of a bit strange for me, but that is what it is. With Luke, I've obviously had a history with Luke, and he used to find some of the weight cuts hard. I don't know whether it's a discipline thing anymore. It's obviously a different person, different athlete from the days that he was training with me. He's moved on somewhat. So whether he's got some old habits, I don't know. I don't know whether he's moved to Scotland, likes the taste of haggis, or what he's consuming. You never know with Luke. But maybe Luke knows. I don't know. I mean, if Luke's doing something, perhaps he shouldn't. I'm sure he probably won't want to share the fact. But
it was. Now, to be honest, a big part of it was I'm working at them nightclubs till late as well, and I normally was stopping it right before the fights, but there's only so much time you can take off. So I'd run out of my time, and then see for this next fight, I'm like, oh yeah, all right, I'll do that. And then a week before the Creasy fight, when I normally drop all my weight, I'm still working late nights, and for some reason, when I take these, because I'm training early mornings, you take 4 hours sleep, and then you get another 4 later on. But I weren't cutting the weight when I weren't sleeping, so I was eating next to nothing, and the weight weren't coming up. I was like, I don't know what's going on there. So that ended up being a right pick up.
That's probably not the best thing to have, like split sleep like that. It don't make your body work so efficiently. Is that something that you feel that you can monitor now? Now you know that your body reacts in this way. Is this something that you feel that you can put right? Because I know we got to earn to make a living. This is a difficulty that so many people don't understand about pro athletes. Even you being right at the top of the food chain in Cage Warriors, people have to work part-time or full-time jobs to sustain themselves. You've not, unfortunately, made that breakthrough financially with your fight purses just yet, but I'm sure those times will come. But if you can put it right, but I forecast that if you can stick together 18 months of good discipline, good performances, I think he'll be back on holding the title. And I'd very much like you to move on, and I'd love to see you in either Bellator or UFC. That's where I feel like you belong. You just got to get all the outside circumstances all falling in line to make that available to you. I don't know whether you agree with that forecast, but I'd say you're 18 months away from, like I say, having the good performances, obtaining that title, and then moving very quickly on to something bigger and better. I don't know whether that's what your intentions are, but that's how I would like to see things for you.
Yeah, it's a lot less than that for me, really, but yeah, definitely the same. Yeah, I signed with a manager now, and it's doing it all through your coach before. Sometimes you don't want to tell him I ain't ready to fight right now, sort of thing. You've just got to. I didn't have that in me. I was just like, yeah, I'll fight at any time. But yeah, now I've got a manager I can speak to. He set all that up for me. But I said to him, I'm not wanting to even outlive this contract December, really. So I've got 2 fights left on the contract, I think, or 1 fight. Right. And I'm planning to be gone this year. If I'm getting them two wins, I'm gone. Whether they give me the belt or not, that's I think I'll be on the big shows January time.
Yeah. Are you opening yourself up to more than one option regards to bigger shows? Are you sort of like, not just the UFC or nothing? Are you willing to go to other promotions if needed?
Yeah, it depends. It depends how I do at bantamweight. To be honest, if I feel good at bantamweight, I think the options are also Bellator, but obviously UFC. I'll probably get a Dana White's contenders if I go back down to flyweight. It's one of them weird ones because other shows, I've had quite a few other shows like that. EFC's always messaging me to go on at flyweight and other places, and they're actually paying enough to the point where you could pack up the work and do it. So and make the weight easy, if that's all you're focusing on. But yeah, I'll see how I do at bantamweight because, to be honest, I've never lost there, and I've fought some good guys there. So yeah, if I do well here, I'll probably stay anyway. I can fight often this way, and the training is enjoyable.
Yeah. And something I want to touch on a little bit, which might be a little bit of a difficult talk, especially if he's listening. But I'm kind of curious on your relationship with James Doolan. Because to me, he gives me the kind of, I mean, I don't know the guy in the big scheme, but he gives me the impression that he's an extremely professional coach and someone that wouldn't adhere to your, to you not making weight in a very positive way. Do you find that he's quite strict on you? I mean, because our relationship was very, very friend on friend base, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But James Doolan strikes me as someone that would stick a certain barrier up where there's lines that you can't cross. Would you say that's a good assumption of how things are with James?
Yeah. I mean, he's booted people out in the past for not missing weight, but
right.
Yeah, definitely. He don't put up with my shit, that's for sure.
Yeah. He gives you the impression. Like, I wanted to have a picture of him at one of the fight shows that I saw him on one of the amateur events. Did headline some pro fights as well. I have to sometimes pick what type of face expression I think he's giving up, or whether I can go up and ask for a picture even. He just seems like quite a serious dude.
Yeah, he's very similar to Raymond, to be fair. Like, right. He's smiling, but he's not. And he's the same kind of guy, like obsessed with it. He don't switch off from MMA. You'll be speaking to him a casual conversation, but really it's...
Yeah, he reads a lot of books and stuff, isn't he? He's quite intellectual and smart dude.
Yeah, it's all martial arts related.
Carry on talking.
I was just saying it's all martial arts related, yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned EFC, Luke. They've put on some really good fights over the last couple of years. Obviously, they're based in... Is it South Africa they're based?
Yeah.
They've had some big names fighting on them, and there's other companies starting to pop up as well. Like you've got that Eagle Fighting Championship as well, which I think is Khabib's, isn't it? The EFC have been putting on some good shows. You've got obviously one championship as well. So there's other options out there for fighters.
Yeah, I heard that KSW's got a TV deal now in the UK as well. And apparently this TV deal, they're opening up way more divisions because at the minute they've only got featherweights, but soon they're adding flyweight and bantamweights. And I think it's Channel 5 or something, but it's going to be streamed in the UK anyway.
Oh, wow.
So there's loads of options. There always has been, but there's certainly a lot more at bantamweight than flyweight. But I mean, I'd still like to go to the UFC, but that's the thing with all your sponsors and the rest of it. If you're earning more at Bellator, it's a no-brainer, really, isn't it? It's just you're getting paid to fight, so you want to be getting paid the most.
Absolutely, yeah. And you could, like, obviously a former opponent of yours, who I know there was a bit of needle with, Jake Hadley, who's actually fighting next week in the UFC, but he went out and to the EFC, didn't he? And he fought a couple of fights. So I think there's no reason why you can't go and show your skills in other companies and get paid for it, get what you feel you're worth. And I think luckily now, as the sport is growing, there's more and more options. I saw that obviously One Championship, who we've had contact with to get fighters on and stuff a lot with, they have got an Amazon Prime deal now. So I mean, that's another one which is going to be on in the UK, which pretty much, because I think most people have got Amazon, Like, so
Yeah.
if anything, I would say more people have got Amazon than have BT Sport or Sky Sports, something which you pay a lot more for per month. So I think in some ways, one championship could be more accessible than UFC for fight fans, which is quite an interesting development because, like Danny, we've talked about like one championship a lot over the last couple of years. They put on some incredible cards and fights. Obviously, you had that Gary Toonan versus Than Lee fight the other month, which, it was over quick and it didn't quite go as we thought it would go in terms of the length of it. But like as an event, that was a massive card. There was loads of good fights on there. They had Mighty Mouse fight, recently against Rotang. So I mean, if they start to get a bit of traction in the UK, because I do think they don't get enough coverage in the UK for me, because I think the fights and the fighters they've got, they should. But unfortunately, a lot of media companies who cover the sport tend to focus on UFC and then a little bit of Bellator, Cage Warriors and stuff. I wish that those media broadcasters would put more attention. Like the BBC, actually, since they signed Bellator, has been a bit better. With getting fighters on their channels and stuff like that. But they put a lot of focus on boxing. But the sport's growing, without doubt. Luke, with the Josh Reed fight, like, how do you see that fight playing out? Do you see it being like a bit of a battle, or do you think you'll be able to get it done early, or like how do you see it going?
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to get it done early, to be honest. Because the Cage Warriors are kind of advertising it as a 3-round battle, but I'm thinking I don't want a 3-round war. I'm going to take this guy out fast. But to be honest, there's obviously the method of eating him, what most people have done, where they're just sort of, that Italian boy done it to him, hugging him on the fence. He don't seem to have much get up and go from these situations, but he has just got his black belt in jiu-jitsu, so he's good on the ground. But I think that in between stuff, like the wall wrestling, I think that's where he lacks. He just kind of gets stalled out there where he can't move. I don't know if it's because he's a big bantamweight doing the cuts, feeling dodgy at times like myself or what, but he seems to get fatigued heavily in those cage wrestling spots.
Cool. Like I said, I can't wait for that fight, and I'm really interested to see, because for me personally, I haven't really seen a lot of you at bantamweight, so I'm kind of really looking forward to seeing how you take to that, or back to that, should I say? It's do you see it long term that bantamweight is where you'd prefer to be, or will it be a case of where the best opportunities are?
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. I'll see after this fight. I might be giving up a bit of size, but I'm probably not giving up any weight. I'll probably step in there the same weight as him anyway. So we'll see where it goes. But there's obviously bigger, longer guys cutting more, guys doing it to the extreme, and vice versa. So I'm not sure. I don't fancy the top at the minute anyway. I wouldn't fancy fighting any of the top 3 UFC bantamweights anytime soon. They're quite big dudes.
Yeah, 100%. Do you know? I was going to ask you, Danny, actually, while I remember it, because I forget, especially because we're going to be a bit more general with the UFC and everything later. You know, with the Oliveira thing, in his pre-fight interview or like quotes or whatever, after he missed weight, they said the reason was the way the scales behind the scenes, he was on weight and they checked him, and that's why he had left, because he had left it really late in the window, and then when he checked before he went out on the stage, he was on weight, so they were all happy, and then he went out, weighed on the official scales, but apparently they use digital scales backstage, but then when they do the official weight, they obviously use the other type of ones. Is that a problem for the UFC that because then apparently if you look at the fighters' weights, there was a lot of disparity between the backstage weigh-ins and then the weigh-ins
Well, I'd be surprised if there was an issue, because everything's so professionally run there that they do get calibrated. And if there was an issue with the scales backstage, that would have presented itself before him weighing on them.
Yeah.
So
if everyone else before him was enough under that, so say if it's only a £0.5 difference, and everyone else was within that window, then it wouldn't have been noticed, would it? And I guess I saw a few other fighters kind of mention it, that there was some sort of difference, and I think they also were sort of saying they would prefer digital scales to be used by the commissions and the UFC when they're doing the official weigh-ins. Why do they use those particular scales? I don't know what they're called, but why don't they use digital scales? Do you know?
I think it's just to stop any kind of cheating. I think anything where it's electronical can be programmed in some way, I suppose. I mean, I'm guessing here a little bit, but with those sort of scales where you're nudging them along and that, I mean, they're just, they're just really precise. So I don't think that's an issue with it. I'm kind of surprised fighters are saying that, but I've got no issue with the way things are being done at the moment. But then again, I'm not fighting these days, and it was a different era that I was fighting in. So I don't know, but I'd be surprised if they had, scales that are coming up with different weights, both backstage and then on stage. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you've got to use the official, whatever the official weighing scales are saying. That's what it is, isn't it? At the end of the day,
yeah.
But it was a weird one. But I saw Dana White said that Oliveira still got his pay-per-view points, and he still got paid all the same stuff that he would have.
Yeah.
But he just lost the title because that's the rules. However, I saw a few people point out that sometimes they kind of can be a bit more flexible with that. I think in the past they've just maybe not stripped him of the title, but I don't know. I'd have to go and check that. It's a bit of a he put the performance in anyway, which is the main thing.
Oh yeah.
Luke Gaz sent in a question for you. He said, when you look back, you've only had a couple of losses on your record at professional. Obviously, you've beaten Sam Creasy since you lost to him, and then you've got Jake Hadley and Elliot Hoy earlier in your career. Would you like to in the future go back and kind of do the same thing with those defeats and kind of come back and make a point, if you like?
What, as in rematch the other two?
Yeah, as in.
I tried. Yeah, I mean, I tried to rematch that Hoy ages ago. I took that on about 2 or 3 days' notice. It was to get this Bama contract because there was nothing else going at the time. And then, of course, they offered everyone ridiculous chunks of money for these contracts and then go bust. So I took a fight on short notice, compromised to get a contract. And then they didn't even give you the contract. They just went bust. A load of money laundering. So, yeah, fuck you, Bama. And, that's that one. And obviously the Hadley one. There's a lot of things I could have done differently about that, like put a few needles in my ass, do an IV, the rest of it. But it is what it is. Sometimes I think to myself, like, did I do enough? Always questioning yourself on, like, because I've got reasonable thoughts about the last 4 or 5 guys I fought. I think they're all taking stuff. I think it's just almost encouraged by smaller promotions as well. So it's one of them. I always think to myself, I watch them More Plates, More Dates video where he breaks down all the UFC guys and how they're doing it, or how he potentially thinks they're getting away with it. And then he's like, he says stuff like, if there's no drug testing going on in these other organizations, why wouldn't you, sort of thing? And I'm thinking to myself, how much do you want it? But I'm too honest with that kind of stuff. But it does frustrate me, and I was going into a few fights angry, thinking that, if you know what I mean. It's like, I seen a video of that Hadley actually on that Siam boxing a week ago, and you should see the size of him. I don't think he's going to make weight again.
Yeah, because
He looks even bigger now than before, and his stomach's got more pricks on it than a dartboard.
So yeah, I think Jake, did he miss weight for the Contender Series?
Yes, because well, I don't know if they can there or they can't, but they probably didn't actually do the IV sort of thing.
Right. Okay.
And I can't really. I can't say too much on that missing weight thing, but I think he probably done the same on my one. But there you go.
Is that a fight you'd like to have again in the future, or are you kind of done with that rivalry? Because there was a bit.
Yeah, for sure. But it's just there's no point trying to get a rematch with him right now because I'm not even there yet.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But it's definitely on the. Well, I want to fight all them guys. I look at the UK bantamweights and the flyweights, and I potentially like a fight with all of them. But the thing is, you're still looking at UK regional fights where the Americans don't even want to see that. They want to see. It's like when that Joe Duffy went into the UFC. And McGregor was back at lightweight. They were trying to pump for that fight, but none of the American fans were interested for it because it was McGregor's only loss or whatever. No one wanted to see it. They're just wanting to see him fight the next biggest thing, sort of thing. So, yeah, domestic fights. Unless you're fighting for a title and there's two guys there ready to go, they don't really happen.
Yeah, I remember that Duffy situation where they was trying to perhaps push for that, but Conor McGregor wasn't even interested in it. He said, look, I've moved on above that level. I mean, he's a good kid, good fighter, but he ain't of my caliber. He just was not interested at all. He had his eyes firmly on a bigger prize. So, yeah, I just think no matter how much they wanted it, he didn't want it. And if he don't want it, it ain't going to happen. So I don't think that was ever going to be the case. And it didn't really interest me, particularly that fight at the time. I think Duffy needed to reprove himself, and unfortunately, he struggled a little bit, didn't he? He just didn't perhaps make the bigger impression as perhaps what people thinking he was going to do. But yeah, he struggled a little bit in there.
It was impressive though. I remember seeing him back on his last Cage Warriors fight. He just came back and had that one fight before he went to the UFC because he cleared off for pro boxing. And then I was surprised to see him back, and I was live at the fight where he knocked the guy out. I think it was a knee. The guy stepped in and he just kneed him, knocked him clean out, and I thought, cool, this guy's dangerous. But it's that lightweight division, man. They're all killers.
They are. It's a very, very deep division.
It is, yeah. There's talk of Conor McGregor fighting Chandler at some point. I think it'll probably happen. I know that's one that you called a while ago, Dan, wasn't it, that you'd like to see.
That'd be a good one.
I don't think it happens anytime soon. I got to say, I think, like Dana White said, Conor McGregor's still not even in full training yet. So it's going to be a while before we see him back in the cage. But it seems like both the fighters want it. If nothing else, it will be a spectacle and it'll be a hell of a fight.
Yes, stylistically and personality-wise. I mean, they're both such forward, confident, opinionated individuals that it'd just be an amazing clash of personalities in there. It'd be an interesting scrap.
Yeah, I feel I'm really sad for Tony Ferguson. He has taken some losses in the last sort of 18 months, 2 years, and I thought he looked so good in that first round against Chandler as well. And then he just got slept with that kick. And he was just unconscious. And that was it. It was game over. But before that, I thought he looked pretty good. And it's just
before I watched it, I seen that picture the next day come up of his face on that front kick. And it was like that Frankie Edgar kick, but his eyes in that one, it didn't look real. I was thinking that's got to be Photoshop. There's no way that's a real picture, but yeah, it was.
It does look. It looks like so photoshopped. It's unreal,
Yeah.
but it's just It's it was an incredible knockout, but like it just shows you that no matter how good you look, if in the early part of the fight or in any part of the fight for any duration, you can always get caught by when you're at that elite level. And Tony Ferguson. I am really happy though to hear Dana White said in this post-fight press conference that like Tony Ferguson's not in any danger of being cut or anything like that, which I was really happy to say because like Dana White said he's still an elite fighter, but he does need a win, I think, at some point. Like he's lost, I think, 4 now on the bounce. I'm not 100% sure.
No, I think he had a win.
Did he win in
No,
between?
he didn't, I don't think.
Did he
For a
not?
little while.
I know that he's on a bad run. I'll have a quick check now.
Nah, he's just been fighting killers.
Yeah, that's it. It's when you fight that level of guys.
Who did he have? He had Gaethje. He had Benil Dariush, was it?
Yeah, so he lost to Chandler last night. Then he lost to Dariush last year, and he lost to Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje. So his last win was against Cowboy. So I mean,
yeah,
a lot of people said last night that the Ferguson versus McGregor fight is dead, but they've been going back on social media back and forth for the last couple of days, and actually the last person they both beat was Cowboy Cerrone. So I mean, technically, you could probably match them up. They don't like each other very much. I can tell you that much.
No, it'd be an interesting fight. That, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. Right, Luke, we're going to let you go there, mate, as we've got Ben's going to join us now to talk some boxing. Really appreciate your time, mate, and really appreciate your honesty as always, mate. It's,
anytime, my man.
Cheers. Yeah. Take it easy, my friend.
See you, Si. See you, Danny.
Cheers, Luke.
Cheers, mate.
Luke Shanks, everybody. And then straight away, we'll bring in Mr. Ben Doherty. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. How's it going, guys?
All good.
All good, Ben.
Lots to discuss this evening. It's like almost where to start. So actually, before we start with the obvious Canelo upset, as it were, I thought I'd just get your take on, because it was something we discussed probably a couple of times over the last sort of month or so, as Kell Brook retired. I was quite happy to see that. Were you surprised that he actually went for that decision? Because obviously there was talk of him fighting, I think, Conor Benn, wasn't it?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised, Simon. I was hoping he would announce his retirement. Actually, I said the day after the after the Khan Brook fight, I said what would be really nice from my perspective right now would be if Kell went out on a high, because to be able to leave boxing on that kind of a high with that kind of a huge payday is something that very few fighters are afforded at his stage in their career, when he was already shop worn, and was had been beaten a couple of times, badly. You wouldn't expect him to be able to leave heroically, and which such a mammoth paydays it was for the two of them, because the British fans really lapped it up. So I thought if he could just go away with the crowd still roaring for more, as it were, that'd be very inspiring and quite just a positive example to lay down. And people were saying to me, "Oh yeah, but he won't know." And a few friends of mine who were very much major in the kind of having to be right at all costs on Facebook kept telling me, "Oh, you'll see, he'll definitely be tempted by the money. It's always the same." So I was chuffed when it was announced that he was calling it quits. And
also, I think some people don't realize perhaps that he only lost 3 times, and the 3 people he lost to was Triple G, Terence Crawford, and Errol Spence. Those are 3 top level guys, and he's got, I think is it 40 wins or 30 something wins. So I mean, the man's had an impressive career. So like you say, to be able to go out with that record and go out with a big payday and settle his feud with Amir Khan. It's like the perfect thing, isn't it? Not many people get to go out in the perfect way. So I think, I was very happy for him. And I was happy to see that decision. So we had Canelo Alvarez going up a weight, I believe, wasn't it, to fight Bivol. Dimitri Bivol. Didn't go the way people thought it was going to, I guess, or the majority of people seem to think it was going to go. Does it damage Alvarez's record, or does he kind of almost get a pass because he went up a weight?
I'll come to that very quickly. Can I just ask, what is that noise we're getting that's kind of distracting? I think
it's probably Danny's because he's working in the in the gym, so he's in the reception.
Are you hearing the music faint in the background?
Yeah, it's constant, like this kind of like.
Yeah. I mean, I've shut the doors. It's just really bassy, but I can't do any more than. Sorry about that.
As long as as long as it's not something I'm doing. Yeah, well, you know what? I think it does. It does make some people reevaluate Alvarez, which, on the one level, it's not fair. But my take on it is that, for me, in moral terms, it's his fifth loss. He lost, to me, obviously he lost to Floyd Mayweather. We know that outside. I think he lost to Erislandy Lara before that. After that in 2014. I think he lost to Golovkin the first time beyond any reasonable argument. And I know it's not popular. It's not a popular view, this, by the way, but I thought Miguel Cotto beat him in 2015 too. I really do. And I'll break it down. I'll put money where my mouth is. I'll watch it with anybody. And, I've done rescores on Facebook with my commentary over the top of it. I realise that doesn't prove anything because it's very much, if you watched it with me talking over it, talking about how Cotto's winning, you're going to get influenced by that. But, and then obviously he was beaten out of sight on Saturday night, although he only lost by a 2-point margin on every card, which, that people say it's almost too. You'd think it was almost too much of a cliche to be true, but it is true when people say against Canelo you start 4 rounds down, because Bivol probably won 3 of the opening 4 rounds, and he didn't get a single one of the first 4 rounds on the official cards. He was 4 rounds down, but he still won because it was such a landslide that he won 9 rounds to get a 2-point margin. That's how dominant he was, and the commentators talk about it like it's normal. I remember Kate Abdo and Sean Porter and Jetta McGaskill talking. Can he get a decision against Canelo Alvarez in Las Vegas, or is that impossible? And they're talking about it like it's perfectly acceptable. Like it's actually some fascinating little aspect of the rules. That laymen should learn about. You can't beat Canelo on points, which obviously that's a load of bollocks. And I think I don't know one fair-minded neutral boxing fan who didn't find that beautiful on Saturday night and wasn't absolutely chuffed. But how much does it harm his legacy? Well, I've just said, when I weigh up his legacy, I think of, I feel he lost 5 fights, really, not 2.
Yeah.
And 3 at the very least. Let's say that the Lara one was debatable, because it was, and the Cotto one, not many people seem to agree with me anyway. So let's just say he's lost 3 fights, which even that in itself, there's all-time greats with massive reputations who are really part of the sacred cow in crowd, like Roberto Duran, lost 16 times, and Sugar Ray Robinson lost 19 times. He did have a hell of a lot of fights, mind you. That's something that people need to factor in. But, Canelo, he's the undisputed world champion, super middleweight still. He did step up and fight an elite light heavyweight who was better than we all thought he was, I think it's fair to say, even though we'd seen him before. So he was taking risks. He didn't enforce a rehydration clause on the guy or a catch weight on the guy. He stepped up and he got beat. So, perhaps, we should acknowledge there's no disgrace in that. And it's quite impressive the way he cleaned up the super middleweight championship. Middleweight, I think his resume, he's got the question marks and asterisks over it because of what I've said about the Golovkin fights, both the fights. Light middleweight, he was kind of beaten out of sight by Floyd Mayweather back in 2013, albeit he was dragged down to 152 pounds, which is 2 pounds under the light middleweight limit. So, is he an absolute stone cold bona fide all-time great? I'm still not 100% convinced he is, but at the same time, whatever legacy he already has, that shouldn't impact too harshly on it from Saturday night.
So am I right in saying that they've confirmed there's going to be a rematch? Did I see that somewhere?
Sounds that way, Si. And apparently he wants the rematch. Other people are saying, I've been throwing it out on my page today and yesterday, and a lot of people have been saying he'll get beaten again. A bit like, the Joshua Usyk scenario, where I can't find many people who fancy Joshua to turn the tables because it was so conclusive and because he kind of shut Canelo down on Saturday night, Bivol. A lot of people are saying he should stay away from it and he should embrace the positives that he's still the undisputed super middleweight champion of the world. He dared to try and conquer another peak. It was a step too far, and he should leave 175 alone and stick down at 168 and crack on. With his legacy there. And a lot of people are saying that the notion of a Golovkin third fight, which was supposed to be next before the curveball was thrown into the mix, a lot of people are saying, why don't he have that fight? Because if anything, it's given it some more spice and some more intrigue, the fact he has just been beaten, because it's kind of made Golovkin's chances seem, more optimistic at this stage, because a lot of people were of a view that it wasn't much of a race in 2022, as close it was in 2017, the scenario. So some people are saying, no, let's have Golovkin Canelo 3 and forget about Bivol. To spice things up even more, Bivol has said maybe he'll fight Canelo down at 168 to prove it wasn't about size, and it wasn't about the weight. He says we could fight at super middleweight for all those belts next time, because Bivol is trying to claim that he can make it comfortably. He never has made it comfortably as a pro. So, but
that's an interesting little twist, I think, isn't it?
Yes, it would be.
An interesting one. Do you know, the one thing I would say with Canelo Alvarez was, I really liked the way he took the defeat. It was nice to see a fighter not, complaining, and he took it with. I thought he took it really well. He was quite.
You say that, but the sour grapes were delayed. I said the same thing. Sour grapes were delayed. He's been saying he won, and the other guy only won about 4 rounds. He's been delusional and saying that he thought he won the fight. So he wasn't that gracious, really.
He seemed gracious on Saturday.
He held his emotions in that ring when he was getting interviewed. Yes, agreed.
And I did see a lot of people, as they were waiting for the scores to be read out and finalized. A lot of people were kind of like, Canelo has lost 100%, but he's going to win. Yeah. So it was almost like people were expecting him to win on the scorecards. But I thought they were so one-sided. I really didn't see how they could do it. And then they produced these scorecards, which were so much closer than what I expected.
Yeah. It's standard, Simon. We've come to expect it. Like, people who follow boxing always say, okay, that was great, he won, but watch them rob him now. And not just Canelo, but he's obviously one of the notorious examples of that as the cash cow of the sport, But yeah, I mean, but to be honest with you, I felt upbeat about it. I thought it will be a bit closer than it should be. But I did think that Bivol was going to get it. I could just feel it. You get a feeling in your bones sometimes when they're announcing the decision, and as they're building up to it in those few seconds, the tone of it, body language and stuff. And I thought, I did say, I think going into the 12th round, I posted on Facebook in block capitals, they cannot steal it from him now. If they do, we should burn down Sin City. Feeling a bit emotional, a bit enthusiastic at the time, obviously. Yeah. But I felt like you. I thought, no, he is going to get this. Because you know what? When people say it's impossible to win a decision against Canelo Alvarez, it's not. And I said this beforehand, but you have to win it very conclusively to be sure of getting it.
Indeed. Just on the some other boxing news, but before I'm sure Danny asks you some questions. Joe Cordina has been announced he's fighting for the world title in Cardiff as well, which is an interesting one. Versus, I'm going to butcher this man's name. There you go. Aguar. Is that what's that? Is that a really good fight for Joe Cordina? I think he deserves it, doesn't he?
So, well, I don't know, you see. I mean, I would say probably not really, but everybody fights for a world title now. I mean, if you play your cards right, I could get you a shot. So,
can you in Cardiff as well?
I think he's out of touch. It's business, isn't it? He's been able to. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. Whether he deserves it or not, I don't know. it's a different landscape these days, and I have to accept that. I remember when guys like Alan Minter and Colin Jones and Tony Simpson went through all manner of, and Charlie Magri went through all manner of death-defying trials to finally get that shot when it really meant something. And if you actually came good, you knew you were going to be opening supermarkets for the rest of your natural life, at one point. But Joe Cordina, yeah, it's great that he's got the shot for him, in his home city. And I think that the last guy to win a world title in Cardiff was Barry Jones, who's a friend of mine and good fighter, a great guy, good pundit, good commentator. And I think it's great. It's great for the kind of whole Welsh interest thing, no doubt. And I think it's a tough fight. I haven't seen a lot of the other guys, the champion, but Joe is a big talent, and I think he's not going to get a better opportunity than that.
And I think it's on the weekend as well that Wales play a playoff final in Cardiff to get to the World Cup in football as well. So it's going to be an electric atmosphere in the city over the weekend, because there's just going to be people who are out and come into the city for the whole weekend of football, boxing, and plenty of drink as well. I would expect the atmosphere to be quite electric, I think is the best term. It's going to be a really interesting weekend. And it's a tremendous opportunity for Joe. Like, he's 30 now. He's had 14 fights. He's unbeaten. You don't get many better chances, I don't think, to win a world title than that. Like this current situation, he's got to just show that he's good enough and go from there. It'd certainly be an interesting weekend for us Welsh, anyway. Right then, Danny, I'm sure you have got some sort of questions for Ben.
Yeah, I want to go back to the Canelo fight.
Yes.
Canelo looked like he had some successes with the uppercut on numerous occasions. Now, Canelo's, for me, someone that seems to be able to always figure someone out. He seemed to abandon that uppercut. Now, was this an adjustment that you saw Bivol was doing to make that uppercut no longer be available to him? Or do you think maybe Canelo was showing some frustrations? Because he seemed to be bombing in that overhand and that right hook and the right straight. You seem to be really burying that into the guard with not many successes. But that uppercut seemed money for me for him. And I was really surprised that he didn't keep that going in mid to late rounds.
Well, it was the uppercut that put paid to Billy Joe Saunders a year ago today, wasn't it? In Texas. But I think the adjustment Bivol made, because Bivol had that lovely tight guard, with
very tight,
his elbows tucked in, which negated a lot of Canelo's body attack, because they said he did. He did. Arms.
Yeah, he did target the liver a few times. But he seemed to give up on that as well. I think I would have liked to have perhaps seen him try to work for that liver shot and the uppercut in combination to try to give hopes at trying to perhaps break him down for something to come into effect for later rounds. But he seemed to create this pattern that just wasn't working for him, and he kept going with it. Whether that was because he was thinking, if it goes the distance, I'm going to get the nod on the judges, and he felt confident with that. I don't know whether it was that or not, but I just feel like I've seen Canelo change up his game in the fight to find a ways to win, and he just didn't seem to be doing that. And I was a little bewildered by it. And just one other thing that I was wanting to question you, if it was jabs, now some of them were obviously effective, and he was obviously trying to work towards getting that cross-handed into play at some point. But it's almost like he was using that jab to touch and almost frustrate Canelo. Yeah, almost just keep touching him up and irritating him. Do you think that's a good analysis of what he's perhaps trying to do?
Yeah, I think because he thought he needed to throw so many jabs, they couldn't all be quality and they couldn't all be sharp and hard. Some of them, it was the epitome of what I would call a nagging jab, constantly in his face, sticking it all the time. I think he just executed such an impressive, perfect game plan, Bivol, and held it together, so well for a guy who's never boxed at that level on that kind of platform before. And he only had 19 pro fights going into it. I know he'd have had a gazillion amateur fights, because they all do, don't they? The Eastern Bloc guys. But I think, like you said, with Canelo with the uppercut, I think Bivol stopped hanging around in range long enough for Canelo to throw there. I think Canelo as well, as far as the body shots, which he was largely getting blocked. And you talk about that kind of right hook that he was throwing. I think he ran out of ideas early, Canelo, because his bullying tactics weren't working. His bullying his strength wasn't the factor that it usually is, because he's fighting a bigger, naturally bigger, strong guy who really wasn't worried about his punches. Did you notice that? I mean, Canelo did land a few times, and I just don't think he ever bothered Dimitri Bivol at any point. He wasn't in a moment's trouble. It's a difference in Billy Joe Saunders compared to
there was one point, wasn't it, where Bivol, I think like in the later rounds, maybe 9, 10, 11, something like that, he started literally being head to head with Canelo, literally touching heads. He was just in Canelo's range, almost, saying to him, "Look, I felt all you got, and it ain't enough." It was, just adding salt to the wound.
Yeah, and also you notice when Canelo was trying to bait him at one, but because he realised he was having so little success going forward and trying to put pressure on the guy, he decided he was going to try and bait the guy on the ropes. And Bivol was so smart. He just stood there playing that chess game with him. Then they would feint and play this game and you come here, no, you come here, you step over the line first. And then eventually he would jump in, hit him with about 5 shots, straight punches mostly, and then run out again. It was just it was a beautiful thing to see, I think, because I just think it was listen, the guy's a defending champion, right, Bivol? He's got the belt, whatever that matters. And they have Canelo come in second and get announced second, the whole 9 yards, like he's the champion. And I think any neutral person who just loves boxing and wants it to be as pure as it possibly can in a sport which is the red light district of sports, I think you think that's absolutely brilliant. That he upset the script, turned it on its head, and the sacred golden boy has got to go back to the drawing board and lick his wounds. I don't wish ill on Canelo Alvarez going forward or anything like that, but I was just so happy for Bivol. It was a fighter that I wasn't emotional at all about before Saturday night, but now I am.
Mm-mm.
Those little details, though, Ben, about like Canelo coming out last and things like that. They are the little things which rub people up the wrong way, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like if you're even if you're a casual boxing fan or fight fan, like you expect the champion to come out last.
It's tradition. It's tradition. It's protocol. The challenger gets in the ring first. Do you know? Because I know you guys like some of these discourses. When Larry Holmes defended his WBC World Heavyweight Championship, which was very much the only credible title, he was the only credible World Heavyweight Champion at the time in 1982. Nobody really set much store by the WBA, and the IBF had yet to be invented just at that moment. Jerry Cooney, who they called the Great White Hope, they announced him second as well. Larry gets in the ring and they announce him first, and they announced Cooney second, like he was, the heir apparent and all that. And at the time, they attributed that to racism, that kind of favoritism and bias. But it's very unusual and very rare. And but with Canelo, he gets to come in second no matter what, because he's, like I say, he's the biggest commercial animal in the sport of boxing. Whereas really, would it kill him to come in first?
No, probably not, is it? But it's one of those frustrating things. The Zach Parker fight versus Demetrius Andrade is postponed.
Yeah,
as he's injured his shoulder, I think it is. Which is a bit disappointing. I was quite looking forward to that. We discussed it briefly the other day. Is there any other fights coming up, Ben, that you're sort of looking forward to?
You've got, I'm looking forward to seeing George Kambosos versus Devin Haney June the 5th in Melbourne, Australia. I've heard, by the way, Ben Davison won't be there. Ben Davison trains Devin Haney, who is certainly a big part of the team. They said, somebody from Haney's team the other day said Ben Davison won't be there. And I don't know, fellas, if that is part and parcel of the same issue which led to the rumours that he was prevented from travelling to the United States recently on the weekend of the Katie Taylor fight. So Ben Davison is not going to be there in Australia for whatever reason, which is interesting because of the other situation that people are speculating about. But either way, I'm looking forward to the fight. It's for the nearest damn it undisputed lightweight championship of the world. So there's that. You know what? You actually have an undisputed world title fight this Saturday as well. In where is it happening? I forget where it's happening actually, but Jamel Charlo is fighting Brian Cassano in a rematch They've got all the light middleweight championship belts between them. They boxed several months ago and boxed to a draw. So they're going to resolve their differences and try and crown an undisputed light middleweight champion on Saturday night in the States. It's gone under the radar, to be honest with you, but it's a good fight, and it's for all the marbles. So that's something for anyone who's missed that. It's gone under the radar. Yeah,
that sounds like a good one, because especially if they've already fought once to a draw, and all the belts are on the line, it kind of it ups the prize pot, I guess. It certainly ups the stakes. So that'll be a very interesting one to follow. Do you think Amir Khan will follow suit now after Kell Brook and retire, or do you think he's more likely to carry on?
You tend to hope he would retire. I think he should do. The only problem is he may feel he can't go out like that because Kell Brook has found the perfect, kind of renaissance in his career. The slight return from which to go off into the sunset. Khan may feel he wants a better swan song than that in some way that he finds more fitting and more that he can live with. I would suggest he retires, but he might want to, come back and find someone he can beat.
Lastly, and only very briefly, the Jake Paul Eddie Hearn love-in is officially over. I've noticed in the last 3 or 4 days, Eddie Hearn has been laughing it off, I think, but Jake Paul has been kind of sending some tweets and messages to. Apparently Jake Paul didn't like that Eddie Hearn described him as average, and that he had no chance of ever being a world champion. And of course, he did a video last night saying that the only reason Bivol beat Canelo was because of his size. He has the same size advantage, so he would beat Canelo. And so, but he still won't take that fight against. I think Eddie Hearn said he'd give him a fighter who was 1-0 or something like that, and they would he'd match him up with someone, and he would. It doesn't seem as interested in that one, funny enough, but there we go.
I don't think he'd beat any credible boxer. I really don't. I'm not.
Do you think Tommy Fury beats him, Ben?
He better hope he does. Otherwise, he's got no business in the game. I mean, if Tommy Fury can't beat that guy, to me, he looks what Jake Paul looks like. Okay, he looks like someone down the white collar class, which I've got starting again tomorrow night with Bad Boy Promotions in Poplar, East London. He looks like one of the better ones you get in there. Strong, athletic, young, strong, athletic male, keen as a fuck. And you'd be like, what? He could maybe box amateur one day. You know what I mean? That's what he looks like. He looks like one of the ones who's a little bit more lively in that class for ordinary men and women to have, to undertake that kind of firewalk challenge of a boxing match over 3 1-minute rounds. That's what he looks like to me. I mean, I know he got KO of the year, I believe, from some authority. I don't know what the authority that bestowed that award on him, but he was talking to Eddie Hearn about the fact he had KO of the year, and none of Eddie Hearn's catalogue of fighters had got the same accolade. But he knocked out a guy who's not really a boxer, didn't he?
Yes. Yeah, he hasn't. I don't think he's fought a boxer, has he?
No,
he's fought a couple of UFC fighters and some. I think was it a baseball player or a basketball player or something?
I believe there was a basketball player in there somewhere. Yeah. So I just don't think he beat anybody that was remotely credible. And
wow!
If Tommy Fury is supposed to be going anywhere, then of course he should be able to handle this guy. But Tommy Fury. His opposition hasn't been great up to now, and I think he's lost a bit of momentum with his career a little bit lately, hasn't he? Although he did box on the undercard, didn't he, of Tyson's fight, Dylan White. So Tommy Fury just needs to get on with it. I understand why he's fixated with that guy because of the money that's on offer, because we live in a crazy world today. But really, I mean, it would be a very bleak prognosis for the career and trajectory of Tommy Fury if he can't beat Jake Paul, quite honestly.
Yeah, it's difficult to see him coming back from that, isn't it? And I'm sure, some will say, well, he might never get the opportunity to make that money if he doesn't take that fight now. So, I can understand it to a certain degree, but I don't think he's particularly skint as it is, like, in fairness, with the other things he's done with TV and stuff like that. But look, I get it, because, if he goes on and has an average to decent boxing career, he may never get that big payday that sets you up forever. Whereas he could take that fight and potentially get it. So I could understand the attraction. In answer to your question, it was ESPN gave him knockout of the year for his knockout of Tyron Woodley. So
I like the way you're on the case with this research while we're talking.
I was interested. I thought it must be some sort of half-assed award or something. And when I saw that it was ESPN, I was very disappointed.
Because I knew it wouldn't be Ring Magazine. I just knew that wouldn't be the case. They would not give him Game of the Year. But ESPN, they're a little bit more of a TV company, aren't they? So
yes, and they apparently the reaction from boxing fans was not pleasant.
No.
They were not happy that was what was given as the KO of the year, and I can understand that also. Right, Ben, just before we let you go, mate, give your book a plug. How's it doing in the charts? What's the most recent?
1 second. I've got it here. So this the Fifth King, The Rise and Fall of Wilfred Benitez, is currently at number. I believe it's the number 19 right now, but earlier today it was number 17. They move about, okay? It's jostling around at the minute with Tyson Fury, Mike Tyson, Barry Hearn, and Frank Warren and et al. It was the highest chart position so far was number 17. It's the rags to riches to rags tragic story of a reluctant genius, Wilfred Benitez, one of the most iconic fighters in the history of Puerto Rican boxing, which is a hotbed island of fistic magic, really. But it's so far the feedback's been good, and I'm seeing people, acquaintances of mine in America or Canada, who've got it and say, or some, they happen to have bought it, or someone sent it to them and said good things about it. So I would like it to crack the top 10 at least. 25% of all proceeds from sales will go to Wilfred Benitez, who requires daily care 24/7 these days. He lives in Chicago with his sister Yvonne. And I never push my own books this hard, and I never even look for them in the charts, but I want to do this. I mean, obviously, I appreciate the trajectory that I get as an author, whatever. But the thing that's pushing me the extra mile is to honour the legacy of Wilfred Benitez with this book.
Good shout, mate. Good shout. Every bit of feedback I've seen on your social media pages has been really good. I've not seen anyone say anything remotely negative about it, which social media these days is full of negativity in it. So if someone's got, or should I say, if someone's got something negative to say, they're not afraid to say it. So
there are places you can go if you want to hear negative things about me. If that's what turns you on, that I could direct you to websites where you'll hear nothing but negative stuff about me. But in closing, my favourite one I ever heard or read was, "I will never understand why this man has such a large and loyal following. It's one of life's great mysteries." I like that.
There we go. Yeah, I just, whatever. But I think
it's a backhanded compliment, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. But hey, look, at the end of the day, you've got that following. You've built that following on your knowledge and your punditry and your books and everything which goes in between, your passion, absolutely. And I think sometimes there's a bit of jealousy there, and it's
I think so.
It's just is what it is. But as always, Ben, we appreciate you, mate, and we appreciate you joining us, giving us the latest from the world, the squared circle. So appreciate that as always, mate. You enjoy the rest of your evening of what's left of it, and we'll speak to you very soon, no doubt.
Absolutely.
Cheers, Ben.
Thanks for having me again. Cheers.
Excellent.
I should have really apologised when that was Jordan. I don't know whether you clocked it.
I didn't clock it. No.
He thought it was going to, because I had to obviously leave the class early, and I said, "Look, I've got to do a podcast." He goes, "Who you got on?" I said, "It was Luke." Obviously, they was training partners, wasn't they? And so he come rushing in thinking it was going to be Luke on, and he goes, "What? Who's Ben?"
That's all right. It's all good. Right, mate, we're going to be super, super quick tonight, even quicker than normal. So Friday night, we had Bellator. Some great fights on there. I was disappointed that Lewis couldn't pick up the victory, but what a fight. Jesus. Incredible fight Lewis Long had. on that Bellator card. There was also a guy. Oh, where's his name? Forgot it. I can't remember his name. Jordan, something maybe. Oh, that's going to bug me. But in terms of the main events and the bigger fights on the Bellator card, you had Chris Cyborg won again. Looks like they're setting her up for that Kavanaugh fight again.
Yeah.
She just looks pretty unstoppable in this Bellator division, doesn't she?
She does. She's so impressive. And, one thing that we haven't seen a lot of throughout the whole of her career, we're seeing more and more of, is that she's showing that she's got wrestling and grappling capabilities as well. And it's nice to see that she ain't relying just solely on trying to break someone down just from the feet, although that's still largely part of her tactic and her game frame. But, so impressive.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't go to many decisions, so I suppose that's almost like a moral victory for Blencoe. But yeah, disappointing for her. But I mean, yeah, like a moral victory, I suppose, if you take some positives from her point of view.
Yeah.
And Patchy Mix, I thought, had a good little performance in the Bantamweight Grand Prix, which was a good little performance. He's caught my eye. I'm trying to fly through them and just try and pick out some people who were impressed. I can't find the guy I was looking for. There was a guy on maybe it was on the pre
Probably on prelims if you can't find it, yeah.
But I think his name's Jordan, because Violent Money were tweeting about him the day after, but I can't find it. But it definitely happened. I'll keep looking. Talk to me about UFC's pay-per-view on Saturday, though, mate, because that was a hell of an event.
Yeah, just quickly though, Ryan Bader against Czech Kongo. That was a 5-5 to grind. Ryan Bader doing what Ryan Bader does best, which is to just wrestle screw you. Although Czech Kongo was showing some great capabilities of defending, being pinned to the ground and keep fighting up against the fence, he just had the wrong strategy of fighting on the fence with his footwork. It's kind of like just giving Ryan Bader his perfect game plan. So it's a little disappointing with Czech Kongo. I was actually talking with Linton tonight. Linton's back training here for a couple of months. Really good seeing him, and he's really good friends of Czech Kongo. And he said the same thing. He goes, you're up against someone that can wrestle some. You've got to edge them back. You've got to dominate the center of the cage. But he kind of gave really the fence wrestling to Ryan Bader on a plate. And I'm really frustrated to watch that performance because I feel like Czech Kongo has got the tools to win. But you've got to start right. And he was kind of giving away tempo to Ryan Bader by choosing to do that strategy, which he kind of does with everyone. He just likes being a counter striker on the back foot. It's strange how he can't adapt his skills to put himself in a better situation against a certain stylist like Ryan Bader. So, come up short against him there. A little frustrating to watch because each round was the same as the previous round. Really frustrating to watch.
Right. So I found the right Bellator card now. Jordan Barton on the prelims was the guy I was referring to. He defeated Fabakary Diata via a split decision. Hell of a fight. But for me, Jordan really caught the eye. He was really impressive. And obviously, Theobald Guti beat Lewis Long via unanimous decision, 30-27 across the board. It was a long night for Lewis. But the man just won't stay down and won't. Like, he just keeps coming and coming. And Lewis has been on a bit of a tear like the last couple of fights. He's been doing exceptionally well. But Guti's a good fighter. And this was also a landmark show. Bellator Paris. This was a real big event.
Sorry about all the noise. It's these guys.
Look at him.
I'm sorry.
He's troublemaker, isn't he?
Trouble. Nothing but trouble.
Troublemaker. And then you've got Yoel Romero as well. One. I was going to ask you about that. You know the Yoel Romero fight?
I didn't watch that. It did interest me to even watch it. I know that's a bit bad, really.
So he knocked out Polizzi in the 4 minutes 59 of the third round. But I thought the knockout shot came after the bell, but they gave him the TKO victory.
Right.
Which was a bit
awkward. Yeah, I didn't watch it.
It was like the last one, wasn't it? Right, UFC, go. In 60 seconds, tell me all about the whole card.
Randy Brown versus Chaos Williams. That was a really good fight. I feel like Randy Brown could really be something of trouble for a many fighter if he learns to use what he is, which is really long. He's just got to get behind his kicks in the right way and his hands. Other than that, it performed pretty good. I mean, Chaos Williams is a handful for anyone, but Chaos Williams, he just hasn't matured with his tactics, and that was frustrating to see. He kind of just doing the same thing, relying on his power. But he's got to get a game plan or some tactics into his game to steer it more in his favour. Sorry, bear with me. Sorry. So that was that. But yeah, Randy Brown could be a nightmare for anyone. I don't know whether this is an issue with his team, because each time I see him fight, he's showing these potentials, but just not using what he is, which is that reach and long and rangy. But when he does, watch out, anyone in that division. I think he could be trouble. Then we had Shogun Ryu versus Sun Prue. Sun Prue, he's 39 years old, and you've got Shogun hitting into his 40s now. Both been around the sport for a couple of decades. And the decision went to Sun Prue. A really close fight overall. I actually thought Shogun may have edged it. I thought he showed more willing with the hands coming forward, but maybe got scored a little bit too much with the rear side kick. The left kick of Sun Prue was really on point, really reddening the skin on the belly of Rua. It was an okay fight considering they're two older individuals. It was still an okay fight to watch. I mean, for some people in the crowd were showing some frustrations, booing a little. But remember, these guys are no longer in their peak. But I thought the performance overall was apt enough to keep me interested anyway. Majorly, maybe because being legends, being in the sport for so long. But simple come with the victory, and probably rightly so if you added up probably the score count on who landed more than the other. I just felt like Shogun perhaps deserved the nod personally because he was going in with the hands and being more perhaps versatile with his attacks. Then we had
just about I thought. But then Dana White said, just quickly, that he's going to let Shogun Rua fight out his contract, and they'll give him like a big send off, and that he deserves it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely does. He's done some fantastic things for the sport, not just in UFC, but the legacy he really created for himself before UFC. He's fought about and been highly successful and brought so much good to the sport. He really has. And to think that he's still in there mixing it up with some real good talents at 40 years old is really, really impressive.
Good stuff. So then we had the Michael Chandler, Tony Ferguson fight. Didn't last very long at all.
No,
we talked about it earlier, but
we did.
Tony Ferguson's just having a few issues with getting victories, but he's fighting killers as well. It's like you fight these guys who are top level. It kind of comes with the risk of. Yeah. Nothing's a guarantee up at that level, and he's just having a bit of a bad run. He is still in the mix in terms of like these people that he's fighting. He could win on his given day, but it just hasn't been working out well for him. And the frustrating thing for him was it was going well up until the knockout. It was going pretty well, landing hands on Chandler, frustrating Chandler. Chandler, I think, perhaps felt the route to success, if it wasn't for the knockout, was going to be to wrestle Ferguson down. That wrestling shoot was thick and fast. I really felt like if Chandler just chose to wrestle, he could have really screwed Ferguson up and keep pinching the rounds off him, and maybe even stop him with ground and pound. I do feel that Ferguson is a little bit open sometimes when he's on his back. He's a little bit open to some devastating ground and pound, and Chandler is a devastating ground and pounder. I kind of confused why Chandler just wants to fight out on the feet with people since he's come into UFC, because this guy is a pretty damn good wrestler and he's a brutal ground and pounder, but he seems to want to prove something on the feet, which frustrates me a little bit with Chandler, because I think he could have carried on his winning trajectory had he relied a little bit on his full MMA skills and not just the fact that he's an explosive striker. But maybe it's because he can pull off these emphatic wins like he did. Maybe, that is the temptation too much for him to slug it out on the feet, because he can turn a fight around, whether it's going in his favour or not. He can switch it around with one strike. I mean, that teep to the face was horrid, absolute horrid. Like you say, we did touch on it, that there was a picture that made
Ferguson's face look unreal at the point of impact. I mean, it was just nasty, and it was horrible to see Ferguson be out cold that long as well. I mean, it must have been a pretty nasty affair of a knockout when you're not waking up for a good minute or so afterwards. In fact, I was a little concerned and kind of surprised that Michael Chandler carried on celebrating as hard as he was. I mean, beating Ferguson is no easy feat, and I think he's just happy to be back on winning ways and perhaps making noises for bigger paydays in UFC. But I would have liked him to show a little respect. That would have been nice to have seen, but it wasn't the case. But well done to Michael Chandler. He's back on winning ways. Kind of really curious to see who they put him up against next, to be honest. He always brings a good fight, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's always entertaining. Do you know we've seen Tony Ferguson take so much damage over the years and keep coming.
Yeah.
So to see, I think that's what made it quite scary, is to see him get just one shot and out cold, completely asleep. That's the difference, isn't it, to the old Tony Ferguson? And I know that if you get hit on the button and blah blah blah, but like, we've seen him walk through so much adversity physically.
Yeah.
Over the years, that it's almost like a shock when you see him get kicked and go, if that makes sense.
I actually think Ferguson become a lesser of a fighter after fighting Gaethje that time. I think there are certain fights that
I don't know. I think Max Holloway who ruined, I can't remember who it was. There's someone
he got boxed
up for
up
like 5 rounds.
It was nasty.
He's never the same after it.
Yeah, I feel like certain fights, it seems to do this with certain fighters. You leave a bit of yourself in there, and I really feel like that's been the case with Ferguson. Not quite as a resilient fighter as we've seen him be in the past. It's a little bit like that with Korean Zombie. He's just notched up too many miles on the clock, and we're all human beings at the end of the day, and age takes effect. And if it's not age, it's the mileage that you put up within that age. So yes, you can be under 30 years old, but if you've been in absolute wars, it's going to take an effect on you. And I feel that's what we're witnessing here with Ferguson.
It was Gaethje. I mean, he knocked Ferguson. Yeah, he knocked Chandler over at one point. And when you think how short the fight was, that's something. He was doing great. But Chandler's another one that's got mileage on his clock in terms of the wars that he's had. And he is getting knocked off his feet a little easier these days. The human body can only take so much, mate.
It can. Exactly that.
So, next up was the ladies. This fight was not good.
Strangest thing. I mean, the commentators, if anyone watched the fight and listened to the commentators, they were summing it up, really. And all we're going to do is repeat the same. I'm bewildered, disappointed. I live largely my life without expectations. But with this one, perhaps, I pushed that aside, expecting something more of these two. The thing is, stylistically, on paper, it made for an epic battle on paper. But they were so fearful of each other's skill set that they never really come together. And I largely blame Rose. Now, people might not be fans of that, but Rose is the one with the reach advantage. They're on the feet where she has the advantage. And she just didn't really stamp that authority. So I'm not surprised that it went against her. I think she was a little surprised, but I think looking back at the fight, she won't be surprised. Now, I was also a little shocked at the corner team. Basically saying Rose was doing good and that's the way she should do it. I didn't agree with it. I would have. I think at one point they said, didn't you hear them say at one point, are you hearing that crowd? That means you're doing right. You're doing it right. Something along those lines. I mean, that was bizarre.
Well, yeah, I know it was a split. I thought Esparza won.
Me too.
And I thought, considering the way the fight had gone and how bad it was as a spectacle, and the fact that Esparza won, in my eyes, I found it horrendous, some of the things that come out of her corner during the fight. And then at the end of the fight, Rose is like jumping up in the air, shouting, I'm the best, before the results come out. And I know there's a bit of psychology with that. The fighters try and act as if they've won to get in the judges' heads and all this sort of stuff. But it was just embarrassing because she didn't win and she didn't deserve to win either. So
No.
yeah, I didn't like that at all. And
Yeah,
that's not,
I felt sorry for Carla because when they was doing the interviews, we were hearing the boos coming over, and I just hope that she didn't think all those boos were for her. I think largely is because the fight wasn't what everyone was expecting. I think largely the boos were for the overall fight and not aimed at any one fighter over another, really. Although I can't help but think that the crowd were more booing because I was expecting more from Rose. She
And
was
the thing
really
is,
the
mate, as
holder
well,
of how that fight went.
and the thing is as well, mate, is if that had been a decent fight and Esparza had won, you'd be looking at a trilogy fight now. And
Yes.
Dana White said it absolutely will not happen. We will figure something else out, which is a
No.
shame because you've got a new champion and you've got a former champion who's shown, she can go, but they're not going to fight each other because it was terrible. Speak to me about Justin Gaethje then quickly to finish.
Yeah. Amazing for Charles Oliveira. Putting the weight cut issue to one side, he's just so slick on the ground. Now, as much as he's super slick on the ground, I think Gaethje's been shown that he has a major hole in his game, and that is that if he's on his back, he's terrible. He just was not doing the right type of things to try to resist the temptations of the submissions which were being offered to Oliveira. He's got to put that correct. And also, I think Gaethje's had one too many war as well. He was getting rocked very, very early. And not to take anything away from Charles's striking game, but he shouldn't be getting rocked that easy in the fight. It's another one that's showing signs of mileage clocking up. I think Gaethje's got to start thinking about, using his striking when he has to use it, but going perhaps back to his wrestling, because he's got great wrestling, great defensive wrestling overall, but he's got really good wrestling. He could put people down and use that aggressiveness in a ground pound scenario to go along with his good tenacious striking. But relying on the tenacious striking alone, he looked vulnerable in there at times with his striking. I don't know whether you agree or people agree, but Gaethje showed vulnerabilities there on the feet, and that's what led to him losing at the end of the day. He got bottomed out with a cross punch. It put him on his back. It wasn't even wrestling that had to put him there. He got put on his back and Charles was all over him. And once he took advantageous position, he weren't going to let go until he got that tap. And it come in very, very short order. Disappointing from Gaethje, really, really disappointing.
Yeah, Charles Oliveira was excellent. Interesting. When's the next UFC London? Is it June or July? June, isn't it?
I think that's June, that one.
So, interesting. Paddy and Molly McCann were in the crowd watching this. Both, or at least in Paddy's case, he's clearly not in camp because he's still blown up. And,
he shows it in his face, doesn't he?
Yeah,
and they really shows his weight.
They were both pissed up drinking, which is fine. Not a problem at all. But something I found interesting, I wanted to ask you about to finish the show. This week or earlier in the week, Paddy said in an interview, why should I be in a rush to fight again when I'm earning more doing my out of cage things? They should, people keep saying, fight this guy. And he said, well, if they want me to fight the big names, they have to pay me for that, as opposed to not on my initial three, everyone gets the same 3-fight contract, don't they? And I think his point is, well, I'm not going to fight anyone big or a big name until you give me a new contract. And it's, in some ways, it's good, it's clever. He knows what he's doing. He knows his worth. And he knows it's a fairly short career, isn't it? And you've got to earn your money while you can earn it. But I don't think he's going to be on this next UFC London card. I've got to be honest.
No, I don't think he will either. But he's got to be careful coming in with that sort of attitude. Yes, he's got some great trajectory regards results, great trajectory regards attention being put upon him. But this being popular can turn sour very, very quickly. And
I think his main point, though, was that
I get his
trying
point.
to match him up with people who...
Yeah, and I get that. But maybe with that kind of attitude...
it can seep into things, can't it?
Yeah, it can. And we've had him on our podcast. He's a good kid deep down, but he could get people could take that the wrong way, and he doesn't want to become unpopular because that'll all be taken into account regards Dana White. And listen, he's not in a position to bully Dana White into giving him something that he knows he's got to sort of like earn the right of. And
the thing is, he's got 1 fight left on his 3-fight deal anyway. So go and win it, and then negotiate your big contract. Which
That's
I'm sure
right. I hope he does. I just hope Dana White sees that he's still a little bit young, and comes across with attitude in many scenarios, and I hope Dana White don't take it the wrong way, the kind of things that he's been saying, because I don't think Dana is the type of person to like that kind of attitude.
But he's out there working for the UFC. He's doing stuff with the UFC.
He is.
Social media, isn't he? So I think,
of course.
Like I said, I think his point was more that they're trying to match him up with perhaps ranked fighters or fighters close to the rankings, but on his basic deal. And look, I get it from both sides. The UFC wants to cash in on Paddy the Baddy.
Yeah,
but he is saying that's fine, but you have
pay
to pay me accordingly.
And he's right.
More dangerous people.
Yeah, and he's not wrong in saying that.
It's just how you sometimes say it, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's us for this week. We'll be back.
Yeah. Sorry. I just want to mention one thing, because we had Danny Roberts, UK fighter, fight Trinaldo. It was on the prelims. Danny Roberts, it was a case of, I was so impressed with Trinaldo. You got to remember, Trinaldo's 43 years old, and then you got Danny Roberts, young, hungry, and Danny Roberts. He got time and time again rocked. So did you see this fight?
I haven't seen it. No.
No, it was a good fight to watch.
He kept getting up.
Francisco Trinaldo is so impressive. 43 years old. He's really improved his striking, where he don't have to just rely on putting people down, because he's largely known to be a good grinder on the ground, isn't he? He shoots in, grapples people down, but he's really so good with his striking. Now, when I say good with his striking, I don't just mean the delivery of the strike. I've said before, to me, that really impresses me with good strikers is someone that defends very, very well and counters very, very well, and that they've got really good form. He's got such an advanced form from the previous version of himself. He's continuing to improve, and he kept on rocking Danny Roberts time again, and they end up getting to a pocket trade. Again, his head movement, his tightness of defense was utterly impressive, and because he could stay relaxed, because he has such good defensive form, he's not busting his cardio. He's fighting efficiently with no real stress. It was utterly impressive. Look, Father Time will catch us all up eventually, but Trinaldo to still be up there beating youngsters as convincingly as he did, because it was pretty convincing. It really was pretty convincing. Is totally impressive to me. It really, really is. Good one for people to watch if they haven't seen it. Trinaldo should be on the main card next time around, and he ain't going to be easy to beat for anyone in that division. He's gone up a weight now, and he looks very, very comfortable there. Utter respect for him.
42, madness.
42. Okay, 42. Yeah, I thought it was 43. But...
madness.
Yeah,
it's incredible, isn't it, to be that old and still going.
Yeah, to perform, it doesn't even show that he's of that age. In the way that he's fighting, it doesn't look vulnerable like other people. When we watch people like Arlovski, although he's doing great, you know he's not of his previous self. He's just improving on his game because he's changed camps, and that's keeping him relevant. But Trinaldo just so no signs of being someone who's over 40 years old. Really, really amazing.
Absolutely crazy. We'll be back. So we're back next Sunday, back in the Sunday slot at 8 o'clock. So a bit earlier for us all. We got, I can't remember how many guests I've got lined up, mate. Do you remember how many I booked in?
About 3 or 4, isn't it?
3 or 4 weeks worth of guests booked in next week.
Really impressive.
So next week we've got Andy Young, who's fighting on Cage Warriors very soon. The week after we've got Umar Bullet Tooth Kiani coming on, who I'm really looking forward to having a chat with. The week after that, we got Georgita Tanasa, who's fighting on Cage Warriors for the first time, versus Scott Pedersen. So that's going to be really interesting. I might, and that's the week after the Cage Warriors show as well, where we speak to George. So he's going to be like a few days after his fight. So that's going to be really interesting. And I might try and get Scott on again as well, actually, to kind of get the week to week reaction to their fight. But still working on a few as well. So we're booking them in. Lots of guests to come. Ben will be popping up as well, probably every other week at least. And of course, the legend that is Danny Batten. Well, pleasure. Nice one, mate. Guys, girls, people, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week. Cheerio, bye.